I say every week, thank God it's Friday.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank God it's Friday, right? Because it's the gateway to yet another weekend, a few days off, and on Fridays you have the CareSouth Carolina Community Live podcast.
With
I
me and my
am
rep.
well, yes, right. That's right. That's right. And I am one of your hosts, Mark Calhoun. I'm the director of social and community services, and I'm always here with my partner in crime.
Yes, I'm Daniel Myers. I am the director of MATSUD services for CARE South Carolina. I'm also the director of the R Consortium for CARE South Carolina. And I'm glad to have everybody on this morning. Yes, I am. Glad to have you. Yeah, I sound professional. What? Yeah.
I can't do it with him today. I swear. But we have a very special show today for you all. Um, October is Hispanic Heritage Month, and we have some very special guests here joining us today. These are some folks from our Care South Carolina community. I'm sorry, Care South Carolina Inclusion Council, um, and they're going to speak with us today about Hispanic Heritage Month. We're going to get a little history lesson on how it came about. We're going to learn a little about each of their cultures, and we're just gonna they're gonna open up and tell us about themselves today, right? So I'm gonna turn it over to Shanika Pygott. She's gonna introduce herself and she's gonna introduce the team that's here today, and I'm gonna let them take it away.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Care South Carolina. Thank you to Marek and Daniel for allowing us to come on this morning. My name is Shanika Pygott. I am the Deputy Operations Officer for Care South Carolina, but I'm also the chair of our Inclusion Council, and I'm also known as the Chief Jedi. That means Jedi meaning justice, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we want to just come on and just talk, about Hispanic, National Hispanic Heritage Month. It actually began in September. It runs from September 15th to today, October 15th. But hey, we can keep it going all for the rest of the month, right? So just to give you a bit of background of how it began, it actually began as a week in 1968. It started out as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon B. Johnson, and then was later expanded into a full month in 1988 by President Ronald Reagan. And the dates that they chose had some significance. So on September 15th, it was chosen. It's significant because it's the anniversary of independence for the Latin American countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And then in addition, Mexico and Chile, they celebrate their independence on September 16th. And so 16th and 18th, respectively. And so also they also include Columbus Day in that as well, because that falls, around October 11th, 12th. And so all those days fall within that 30-day period. And so that's why that was the time frame that was chosen for National Hispanic Heritage Month. And I'm so glad that we this is being celebrated at Care South, this year. I think it was acknowledged last year, but this is the first year we really got into really having conversation and really celebrating within our sites. Today, actually, sites are wearing jeans and actually choosing a flag from the banners that we have posted at the sites and in our front yards, just to celebrate, whatever flag or whatever country they want to choose, and also have foods in the site. So hopefully, we'll get some pictures out of all that. Today, I'm representing Mexico. I have on my T-shirt that my cousin bought me back from Mexico, and she bought me this band and green. I got it on my arm, so all that, and also we're hoping that some of the sites maybe have some Hispanic foods too in the sites. So all of these things are taking place today, just in celebration. So with that being said, we're going to introduce our panel. We have three Inclusion Council members with us, and also to other CareSouth employees who are with us, who are from, and all are have background, Hispanic background. So I'm going to start on my screen next to Marek. I'm going to start with Dee Joyce Jocelyn. Dee, go ahead.
Okay, bienvenidos. I am Edie Boyer. I am a licensed LMSW, so Masters in Social Work. I'm also a clinical counselor in the Huntsville office. And my background is maybe a little bit different, but I think it's still very included. Um, Being of German and Irish parents, I grew up since I was a very little girl. Grew up in Puerto Rico, and I spent all of my formative years, all the way up to second year of college, in Puerto Rico. So, learning English and Spanish at the same time, learning the culture, becoming the culture, and realizing that leaving the island and coming to our mainland, right, the United States, I found, my gosh, I'm pulling so much more of this culture with me. So it turns out that maybe my nature is Irish and German, but my nurture and my alma, my soul, is very definitely still with Puerto Rico. So it's encantada. I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dee. And see, I love this because we're getting to learn about each other. Kelly.
Buenos dias. Hi, everyone. Kelly Taylor, the Agriculture Community Outreach Specialist for CareSouth. I'm originally from South America. I'm Venezuelan. Um, love being here. Enjoy bringing a little piece of where I'm from to not only the people I come in touch with in the community, but to my coworkers as well.
Thank you, Kelly. Asia. Asia. You got to unmute. There you go.
Hello, my name is Asia. I'm from New York. Well, let's start off. I am a clinical counselor here. I work in the Hartsville office. I'm from New York, but my mother's parents were born in the Dominican Republic, and my mom was actually the first-born generation to be born in this country. So yes, I'm all the way Dominican. My shirt it says "Dime lo que," and basically it's like "Talk to me, what's up?" And if anyone who knows anyone that's Dominican, they know that this is all Dominican. It's "Que lo que" here, like other cultures may not know, what it means, but basically it's just saying like, talk to me, what's up? So I'm glad to be here and glad to be included. I'm glad that we have a month. I didn't even know if we had a month since the 60s or 70s. I had no idea. So I'm just super excited, glad to connect more with you guys and learn more about some of my coworkers. I didn't even know we had a Dominican doctor here. So I'm just glad to be a part of this today. Thank you, Shanika.
Thank you. Daniela.
Buenos días a todos. My name is Daniela Martinez. I am the administrative coordinator with Rhodes. I came to the United States when I was 15 years old. So coming to a new country where you don't understand the language and not seeing a lot of familiar faces was a challenge for me. When I came, I went straight to high school. So I was pretty much just sitting in that classroom, just seeing, not trying to understand what they were saying, but there was nobody to help me. I remember the first time I went to CareSouth, and there was nobody there who could help me or my parents. So since I went there the first time, I remember saying to my parents, one day I'm going to be here, and one day I'm going to help other people. So when I started with CareSouth probably 5 years ago, I went straight to the front office, and I was the help that I needed when I was 15. So that's something that I'm really thankful for. And well, thank you so much for having me here today.
Great. Thank you, Daniela. And last but not least, Dr. Cabrera.
Hola, buenos días. My name is Clara Cabrera. So I'm a provider. I'm an internal medicine physician, and I'm currently working at the office in Dublin. I've been there since January of this year. So I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I basically moved here in my 20s after I was done with medical school and basically to finish my residency training. So I did that in Texas. And then I'm here in CareSouth working now as a primary care physician, which is awesome because working in the Dillon office, I've been able to basically take care of a lot of Hispanic patients. And it's just a different level when you're able to communicate to someone in their language. And we were talking about before how it's not only the language, what's important, but also the cultural background and getting to know those aspects of a patient's life experiences. So it's really good coming from that background, growing up there, understanding everything about the culture in general. Really best being here.
Thank you, Dr. Cabrera. So there you have it. You have the panel that's here today. Dee Dee, Kelly, and Daniela, along with Daniel, are all members of the Inclusion Council. And thank you to Asia and Dr. Cabrera for joining us as well. So I think Dr. Cabrera has already hit the point that one of the first main things that we want to get into start talking about is just how understanding the culture. And I know that Dr. Cabrera and Dee Dee and Asia, as providers, talk, they're concerned about knowing have shared how important it is to know the person's culture in order to be able to really treat them and, really help them. So let's get into talking about that. So I'm going to throw that out there. And I'm also going to throw out, and I learned this from being here at the call center, speaking with our bilingual customer service representatives, that, everybody who's Hispanic does not speak the same dialect of Spanish. I thought, because in school, when I was taught Spanish, there was formal Spanish that you learn. You might say, ¿Cómo está usted? Or it was informal of just ¿Cómo está? The formal is how are you doing, but the informal is, what's like Asian might say like kind of how you doing, what's up. But I was learning from one of the CSRs that's basic. There's so many different ways of how that can be said. So let's get into that conversation. And then I'm gonna turn it back over to the fellas. I'm not taking over their show.
No, man. So somebody was paying attention in high school.
I was paying attention. I love Spanish, actually. I failed it in college, but I did real good in high school.
You tried. That's all that's important.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I would say that's particularly true for us, the ones that come from the Caribbean. If you compare the Spanish that we talk to the Spanish that's spoken in South America, and I know this mainly because I had a lot of co-residents that were from Colombia, Venezuela, and just trying to communicate at first was even challenging because there's so many words that we have, especially in the Caribbean and DR, because we in Dominican Republic we just have so much slang, we cut words, we speak so fast, we're able to understand ourselves between each other, but it's challenging when you go and speak to someone who has a kind of a different background. So it's definitely a learning process, even from me coming from Dominican Republic, trying to basically talk to someone who comes from Mexico, Central America, or South America. It's definitely sort of have to get in the same level, I would say, and sort of like, okay, what does that mean in your country? What does that mean in my country? So that's especially true for us.
And I wanted to add to that also, it's very interesting. Like in Puerto Rico, if you were to say something like, just so you know, the formal way would be para que lo sepas, right? But in Puerto Rico, it's para que lo sepa.
Exactly.
Okay, it's every single word is just chopped. But that's just how it is. The one thing that I have recognized that was quite interesting is when we are speaking to people that think that all Spanish is the same. I've had very embarrassing encounters with many people until I understood and didn't anymore, in which some words in Puerto Rico or in the islands mean very different things in South America.
Yeah.
And some of these things can be very embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we can all, and I don't think this is probably the foray to start saying what they are, but they are things that can be misunderstood and perhaps can insult somebody. So understanding the changes and differences is very important.
Yeah, I'm so glad y'all brought that up because it is. I was thinking that when Shanika was saying that, it is so true. Like, and I think people who are not of Latin descent, they just assume it's all one and the same. I mean, think about somebody that's from New York and from South Carolina. You know what I mean? Yes, English, but that don't mean they necessarily understand each other. You know. So yeah, I know. When I was in grad school, I had a classmate. He was Mexican, and I was happy. He was like, "Yeah, primo," you know. But talking sometimes, and I'm like, "Dude, I don't speak Mexican. I'm sorry, I just don't." And he was actually a translator, and he still sometimes he would tell me if he had Puerto Rican people or Dominican people, and he would have those clients come in, and he would tell me all the time he would struggle, and I'm like, dude, you're a translator though, you know everything, right? But it still was difficult. So yeah, I think that's important for other people to know too. That, like not all Spanish people, we're not all the same. We're different as well.
Mhm.
And the food too. We can get into that. Like, I don't think I really started liking Mexican food until I was in my 20s because it's completely different than the type of food that my mom and grandma cooked. So the food is another thing that other people may not realize. I wish we had a Dominican or even Puerto Rican restaurant
For
around here.
sure. For sure.
Well, talking about food, that's one of the main issues that I have. Being Mexican, coming from Mexican grandparents, and my mama always cooking spicy food. Every time I bring somebody to my house, so we're gonna eat somewhere, they always ask me, "Is it spicy?" Well, not for me.
Right.
You know, I'm used to it. So I think it's very interesting. It's not just American people asking me, but other Hispanic people always coming to me and saying, "Have you
Yep.
tried
Yeah.
this? Is it spicy? Can I eat it?" I'll be like, "Well, Mexicans are kind of weird about spicy food, but you have to try it." So
Yeah.
I think it's really funny when that happens to me.
Wow.
And
Yes,
it's just that
sometimes.
so much. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that so much of our identity is just tied up to food. I would say growing up, food was part of a celebration of birthday, Christmas. All of those things are important and are just very, I would say, such an important part of how we bond with our families.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I hear when you say, "Oh, I wish we had a Dominican restaurant," or like you said, a Puerto Rican restaurant, just because it's so important when, especially for like me being away from home, just having something that reminds me at home. It's so just heartwarming and it's so special when you get to try those things because basically it takes you there right away.
Yeah.
Sure.
And sometimes it's so hard for us to find, like in my case, I'm from Venezuela, so I'm not in an area where it's a lot of Venezuelan people. Actually, in all the time I've been in South Carolina, I've met one person
Wow.
from Venezuela. Um, in like trying to find a restaurant, there's no Venezuelan restaurants around here, so I will have to go probably to Florida to find one, and I will find probably a bunch because there's a lot of Venezuelan people there. But even to find those little things to make that reminds you of home, like the holidays coming up, remembering being home in Christmas time, drawing Christmas theme on the street is something that reminds me of home. So being here, being in such a different culture, you can't do necessarily the same things, and you miss the music, the food, and then how do I make the food here if I cannot find the ingredients
Yes.
that
Right.
are from home, being here and speaking a different language. I got here, I was 15 years old when I came to the States. and I did not speak English. And I identify with what Daniela said. It's so hard when you come to a different place and you don't know the language. And being in CareSouth is so important to me because when I arrived to the States, I arrived to California, and I remember a patient struggling to communicate. And the person who was speaking to them was actually Hispanic. And to me, it was shocking that they was not trying to help this person. And I said, I don't know any English today, but one day I will. And the day I do, I will do what I need to do to help the community. And being out here in the community, getting to know people and see that we are able to make the difference, bringing that little piece to their home, helping them identify with us, even though we're not from the same place. Just the fact of having somebody that speak your language, somebody that can understand where you come from, makes a big difference. And that's something that I am really proud of being part, being part of CareSouth, bring our communities together, even though we're not from the same places.
Yeah.
We can be one and unite as a one community.
Wow.
I just want to go on record to say that I enjoy Spanish food, and if anytime y'all want to cook something, you need to test it out and make sure it's right.
That's right.
Call your boy.
As they were
just
talking
wanna
about as they were talking about the food, I had a flashback. I grew up in New York, and I used to go to the Bronx to my aunt's house, and on the other end of her hall were her Spanish neighbors, and they would have
You
could
can
hear the
smell it
music
through
down
the
in the hall.
door. Through the door.
You hear and you could smell the food. And I remember being able to go down there, and they were having a party, and I ate some of the food, and it was so good. So that was my first. I think I was like about 10 or 11, and I was like, oh yeah. I was hoping every time I would go to her house, I was like, I hope I hear some music or something going on down there because I want to go.
And Shanika, you mentioned that. I was just thinking about that. The beauty of the Latin culture, of Hispanic culture, is there's always a party. There's always a reason for a party. There's always a reason for any kind of celebration. We used to always say, oh my gosh, she passed her fourth grade exam. Fiesta, party. We're going to have a dinner. There's food everywhere. And at every party, there's dancing. There's music. There's constant. So that was that enchanted me so much coming up, just growing up in that, was that food was always such an important connector, as was music and understanding, where you kind of fit within the family, within that unit, and how included you were, even if you weren't a family member.
Yeah.
If you were a friend of a family member, you were family.
Yeah.
You know, as everybody was talking, I was sitting here thinking there's so many similarities between the African American and Black culture and the Hispanic culture, because we would call anything a party just so we can have something to eat, right? And a lot of our fellowship and a lot of our family time is centered around dinner and around food, and also music. And just like the Hispanic population, we have different language and different dialects as well. Even right here in the state of South Carolina, you have your Gullah, and then you have your what they call the Ebonics language. Then you have the straight country, and some of those things translate different. Even though we look the same, some things mean something totally different. Like if I'm going to talk to Didi, I would say, "Hey, Didi, I'm finna go to the store. You want something, right? I'm finna go to the store. You want something, right? But she be, huh? Yeah, you finna." Yeah, so those words translate different, but you understand that because you've been so it translates different with different us as well. So I'm just sitting here looking, it's just so similar, and some of our struggles are so similar, like for instance, thank God for the Inclusion Council, because sometimes we feel left out because we are people of color, and whenever they talk about people of color, people's minds automatically go to African American, Black. Right, but it's all inclusive, and so we have to understand that we have some of the same struggles, and that coming together like we're coming together now, helping each other understand these struggles is going to only benefit us in the long run. So, and just a sidebar, just to get, straight to the point, what I was trying to say, I said all that to say this: I like spicy food too. Just
I,
saying.
I want to add something. I want to add something, and it's about to slip my mind. Oh gosh, it just slipped my mind what I want to say.
That's okay.
Um,
Well,
oh,
wait. Yeah, go ahead.
no, as Daniel was talking, how everybody was talking, I was also thinking about, they were talking about music. You know, we have to look at in American culture how there have been so many contributions from Hispanics, in the arts, in music, in acting, in government, outside arts. Let's go outside arts, in education, in government. You know, so indoctrinated. It is American culture. So I just wanted to add that, when you all were talking about music, I started thinking about Selena. I was thinking about Jennifer Lopez. I was just thinking about, different people talking about arts. I'm a fan of Frida Kahlo. I should have brought my little Frida Kahlo bag. Just 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 we just have to remember that, Hispanic culture is all around us and it's a part of us.
Right.
It's not separated. It's part of our culture. It's part of American culture. It is American culture.
And even if you don't want to believe it, we pull from each other.
Yes, we do.
We no matter what, even if it's unconscious, we pull from each other.
Yes,
And that's what makes America.
right. Exactly.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question. Thinking about that, how does your culture and you all's different cultures help you broaden your understanding of the needs of the patients that you serve here at CareSouth?
I think in my case, I'll say it was good that Venezuela always had people from so many places. Venezuela was a place where your neighbor wasn't probably Venezuelan, even though he would say he had roots from Mexico or Portugal, or it was people from so many places that you embrace. I learned to embrace other cultures. So when I got here, to me, it's never been I'm from Venezuela, you're from Mexico, you're from Puerto Rico, you're from Dominican Republic. To me, we are all one, and
Hmm.
being able to take the time to understand where they're from, how they are. I had the opportunity to visit Ecuador and Mexico, and I've been, I was able to go to different places and embracing their culture without any judgment helps a lot to be here assisting people from so many different places and understanding that we are all different and that we don't have to make anybody feel like an outsider. I know being here, it was difficult for me because I went to school. Most of the people in school I was from Mexico, and they would look at me as I was just an outsider because I was from Venezuela. I never wanted to bring that into everybody else. You have to be open, and being open to embrace the similar things that we have instead of looking at what's different. It helps when we have somebody come in to our center or encounter somebody in the field that we're trying to bring them to the office to get the services, make them feel like we are the same. There's no difference between me and the next person. We all speak the same language. I might have a little bit of a different accent, um, but we are all the same. So if you can match the how can I put it? If you can be in the same level with everybody and understanding them and translate what they want to communicate, it's being helpful knowing so many other people from back home and bringing that to the table.
Yeah. Can I? I was gonna add in something there. One of my experiences was that even though we are as a whole, we also celebrate such amazingly wonderful differences. And we're talking from outward appearance to culture, to belief systems, to changes in belief systems based on our socioeconomic, where we are there, and how interesting it is that the little changes is what makes everybody okay where they are. Whenever I've had experiences in therapy and dealing with someone from our family, let's say a Hispanic family, a good example would be when I was in Washington, D.C., working for Child Protective Services. And we had a family, and the little boy was playing outside. He was 3, and he was alone. And this was a garden style apartment, and he was alone. And of course, I went up and talked to him, said, "Hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name?" He gave me his name. He took my hand and he walked me to the sliding glass door of their home. So I knocked on the door because he was outside, and they had left everything open, and the mother came in. It was so sweet, gentle, gentle lady, and she welcomed me. And I had to explain to her that, perhaps it's not the best idea to leave your son, 3 years old, out by himself.
Right.
And she didn't understand that, or didn't think, oh, that was a problem, until I was able to help her understand that perhaps we're not home, we're not where you are, where it's okay to do so, and even if it's not, it's a little more acceptable. But at that time, the most important thing was her husband was very angry that I was there, and was very curious and very suspicious of me. And as soon as I was able to talk to him in Spanish and ask him, and sort of remembered a little bit about what he perhaps keyed into, liked, sports, or what did he do? I looked around and found something that I could relate to him. As soon as I got his trust, immediately they were open to listening and learning, and maybe having their child be safe later on. So that's why it's so important in my area in therapy, is to connect with them so that they feel safe and they trust.
Let's let me pick back on that a little bit. You talking about the trust factor of it. Talk about a little, and this for any one of you. Talk a little bit about if we're encountering someone of different Hispanic culture in the public space, or even at CareSouth, um, for someone that does is not familiar with the culture, um, or have very little interaction with the culture. How should I? What's your advice on interacting with those individuals when we encounter them, say in the workspace, or in the community?
What give an example, if you would, Marek.
Um, if I'm trying to assist, well, we all work at CareSouth, of course, and I'm trying to assist a patient that comes into the office, and there's that language or cultural barrier. How what's the best? And there's no one around to assist them. What's the best way for me to assist them having that barrier without being offensive to them? That makes sense.
I can tell you about something that it's really essential and it's really easy. So in medicine, it's really important to, number one, understand exactly what your patient is saying. And there's, let's say there's no one there. Actually, in the offices, there's translator iPads that we can use. And sometimes we forget about those things, and they're so critical. And that's the number one step. Just because, and you know a few words in Spanish, or just because you speak English but with a Spanish accent, it doesn't mean that they're understanding you. So just use those translator iPads. They're a very good tool. They're there for a reason. Really simple to use. Anyone can use them. And I would say that's the first step. Just understand exactly what they're saying. And I think that's the best way to help them. And it's just as simple as that. It's using the iPad for translation, I would say.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that, Dr. Cabrera, because that's the first place where my mind went was, we do have the language line, like she said, the iPads in the offices that can be used. Because one thing we have to remember as a healthcare organization, um, you know, you have to be certified, a certified translator, in order to step in and help that patient medically, and to translate for them. Now, at the front desk, it's a little different because, you're just registering the patient and getting just the basic, name, address, that information. And they do that here, our bilinguals here at the call center, they do the same, just get that basic information. But once you start cross over into medical information, it has to be a certified translator or some type of translation to help. So thank you for mentioning that because my mind went right there with you, Dr. Cabrera.
And
Right
also, it's important not just to rely on patients' families,
right.
family members to serve as translators, because the thing is, we don't really know them. We don't know what intentions they might be. And I mean, best case scenario, this family member has the patient's best interest, but the thing is, we don't know. So I would say, kind of try to stay away from relying on patients' family to serve as translators when we have those tools available.
Right. And I also want to add, CareSouth has really gone above and beyond to make sure that a lot of our information is in Spanish so that, when our patients come in, our new patient packets, our, information by slide fee, when you walk, information on the doors, we try to make sure that everything is also in Spanish so that, that information is there for our Spanish speaking patients as well.
And I think too,
also taking the time with the person you're interacting with. One thing that we have in our Hispanic culture is that you might ask, for example, you ask them, do you have pain in your leg? Because they're just coming in to try to get your assistance, and they're going to tell you about the back was hurting a week ago, and then after that it was the arm, but today is my leg. But don't forget that a month ago I fell. So they're gonna go, I was asking you about today, but it's about taking the time and being patient and let them tell you. It might take them a little long to get to what you asked them, but just to take the time and be patient with the person you're interacting with, that's very important. Because if they see that you're rushing them or not paying attention, they're just going to pull all the way back. And now you lost the communication. You lost the chance of gaining that connection with somebody.
Yeah.
That's right. That's another thing we have in common.
and we also have to understand too, just because a person speaks another language doesn't mean that they're deaf and that they're slow. And so we have to stop talking loud and talking slow because that's not helping any.
That's offensive.
So we have to be very, very sensitive of how we communicate.
That's right.
As well as what we say when we communicate. So that's everything. And to me, that would be offensive to me. For instance, my sister's going to kill me if she's watching this, but I had a friend whose father had surgery on his throat, so he couldn't speak. And so when my sister finally had a chance to speak to him, she was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he said, it's not my ears. So I understand. So we have to understand that it doesn't translate as the person being slow or deaf. So we have to speak the same way we would speak to anybody. And don't over-exaggerate our words or over-exaggerate our facial expressions whenever we have that conversation, because it could be offensive.
Right. And thank you for that. And that's kind of what what y'all were saying is what I'm trying to get to, because early on in my days as a site manager, I did probably one of the craziest things in the world. I had a young lady call and I could not understand anything she said. So you pull out your phone and you pull one of those translator apps out. But the thing was, I wrote what I was able to say and it translated it. But when she started speaking back to me, I had no clue what she was saying.
Oh,
and she just hung up, and I felt, and that stayed with me even to this day because I felt like I failed that patient
right.
because I wasn't able to communicate with her, and was not able to get the assistance that she needed.
Well, now on those translator apps, they have an option to have conversations. On Google Translate, you can have conversation now, and it can go back and forth. But what I was thinking, to piggyback on what you guys were saying, I think the most important part is being patient and kind.
Hmm.
Even if I can't understand what somebody else is saying, if I'm smiling and I'm being present and I'm presenting myself with good energy, they can feel that. We may not have no clue what's going on with each other, but they're like, this person was nice and they
Hmm.
tried.
Right.
I think really that's the most important part of speaking with anybody that doesn't speak our exact language. Kindness can be felt. That's universal. Kindness, patience, and positive energy. That's universal.
Asia, you hit it on the head. That's so important. Also, think about yourself. If you went to another country
Exactly.
and you didn't speak the language,
Mm.
and you had people in front of you who were looking at you strangely or ignoring you or feeling really uncomfortable, nobody's going to get anywhere. But
Right.
if you have somebody who's started saying, or whatever it is, to come here, I can't, let's write it down, I don't know, just trying, you immediately feel, okay, they're putting themselves out there for me. I
Right.
don't understand their language, but at least they were kind, and I
Yeah.
feel safe.
Right.
And another thing that I always notice is that when there is an Hispanic person waiting to, I don't know, just get, if a Hispanic person gets to the bank and there's an Hispanic person and a American person, they're gonna go to the American first because maybe that Hispanic person is gonna take a little longer because maybe she doesn't speak the language or maybe you don't have somebody to help the Hispanic person. And to me, that would be something very disrespectful. That instead of you coming to me, if I got there first and trying to help me, you don't want to waste your time and you're going to move to somebody else that you're going to be able to help. I think that's something that I can see it happening still. And I think that's one of the most disrespectful things for an Hispanic person.
Okay.
Good
So
points.
so as we start to draw down, I do want to kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk vaccine a little bit. Okay. Um, you know, as an organization, CareSouth, we've committed ourselves to increasing the vaccination rates in our particular areas amongst all groups. Male, female, Hispanic, black, white, everything. Um, One thing, looking at the numbers, I've noticed, particularly in Marlborough County, the vaccination rate among Hispanic community there is about 19%. What are some suggestions from based on your experience in the culture we could do to better engage um, our Hispanic brothers and sisters and to encourage them to get vaccinated?
I would say you're absolutely right. It's not only for your county, but even in Dillon County,
Yeah,
Hispanic patients, we have one of the lowest vaccination rates.
yeah.
And I would say, number one, it's not only something that's happening within Care South or within South Carolina. We know it's something that's happening nationwide. And I would say the number one thing is remember it's health disparities. Unfortunately, even in the US, there's different access to healthcare, and unfortunately, minorities and including Hispanics, access to healthcare, it's basically one of the main barriers that we face every day. So it's not something systemic, it's not something individual to our organization, it's something that's systemic. Um, and I would say when it comes to vaccines, similar to other racial groups, also is the the fear of getting the vaccine, and also lack of knowledge and understanding what is it that these vaccines are preventing, how they work. So I would say once you sit down with a patient who has gotten a lot of information that's wrong, and one you discuss and sit down and discuss why is it that we're giving you this vaccine, what are the benefits, of course, discussion of the side effects or possible side effects of those vaccines. Once you're able to give them the right information in a language that they understand, using the right terms, it completely shifts. So I would say it's a mix of things. It's lack of understanding, also hearing the wrong information, and health disparities and lack of access. It's another thing. And I would say other things, including even access to transportation to take them to the center. It's another thing that makes it hard. For example, in the zone office, we don't have the vaccine. Patients will have to go to LADA if they want to have it done within multiple CareSouth offices. So in that case, that's also a barrier that prevents some of my patients from having access to certain things. So it's a lot of I would say different things that need to be tackled. And again, some of those things are individual to the locations, but a lot of those things are systemic and national.
And there is a lot of misinformation online. And one thing that we see a lot within our community is that they spend a lot of time checking what's going on back home. So even our Hispanic community that is here, their mind is not fully here. They're still thinking about what's going on back home. So if back home anybody in their family had a reaction to the vaccine, or they got sick because they were sick already and just the vaccine made the symptoms, now they think it's all because of people lying or the misinformation that they saw on YouTube.
Mhm.
So they're comparing what we're doing here to what's going on overseas. So
Mhm.
sitting with them and taking the time to explain that the difference, we're not taking the same vaccines here that they're taking back home. Um, we're we have more resources here to assist somebody that gets sick and giving them that information, being able to sit with them and take the time to tackle all of those little things that we're misinformed about, or making sure we make them understand, not make them understand, but explaining to them that we're not in the same circumstances that they are overseas. Overseas, they dealing with a lot more disparities than we are here, even though we have a lot of them as well. They're in a difficult condition back in these places. So comparing our health system here to the health system that they have overseas is a big thing that we have to talk to the patients about and be able to explain, being transparent. I found that just telling them, look, I got the vaccine. I am perfectly fine. I had somebody tell me you probably will die in 10 years. And I was like, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but we know we're going through a pandemic at this moment. And we have a vaccine that can help us cover us a little more. So if I can get 10 more years, I'm all for it. Instead of the uncertainty of what's going to happen tomorrow. We still don't know, but at least I have something to say. I can be there for my kids. And being able to talk to them and being that honest and take the time to tackle the different things is important.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Um, we appreciate y'all coming to be with us today. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for sharing your cultures, sharing a part of you with us. We appreciate that. Um, thank you, Madam Chairperson, for having them and bringing this forth to us. Part of the Inclusion Council, and we're definitely going to be reaching out to the conclusion Inclusion Council. To I know, get it out right.
I can't talk. I'm the same way.
The Inclusion Council to help us be able to craft some of those messages to reach the Hispanic community because I think we need to do as an organization do more to engage the Hispanic community to increase those vaccination rates. So
Yes.
I'm gonna be reaching out to you guys for your assistance on how we can do that. Okay.
Great. Great. Please do.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And if you could, anyone want to leave us with anything before we close out?
I would just like to thank everyone for coming on today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mark and Daniel, for allowing us to come on to just let the council speak and to let the ladies, share with us. We just thank you. Daniel's already thanking y'all for inviting him to dinner. If y'all,
I saw that.
he's already
Uh-oh.
said that. He said thank you. But this won't be the last time we'll be on. And as an inclusion council, we will, we'll have other times, other celebrations of heritage that we'll be on. So just know that's forthcoming in the future as well.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
having me.
much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
In the Hispanic Heritage Month is within one of the greatest months there is, and I represent the Libra Nation, and we
There we
appreciate
go.
it.
But
No, I
let me
get
see,
that, man.
it started on the best day, September 15th. Remember that.
I give you that.
Both
I
our
give you
birthdays, in case y'all didn't know.
that. We have dueling
We're
birthdays.
figuring that.
She's Virgo, I'm Libra, so yeah. But again, thank you. This was wonderful. We're definitely gonna take every opportunity that we can to have you all back to enlighten us and to educate us and just to just come back and just talk.
Yeah,
That's what we need these
yeah,
days in America and throughout our communities is just to communicate, to talk,
yes,
to understand one another.
Yeah.
You know.
yes.
So thank y'all for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. And please have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
And
you.
stick around before after we end. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Gracias.
Thank you.